Hi, everyone. We are back with At the Table with Chris and Karl. And today we're talking about the misconceptions of using unrooted cuttings in your perennial program. And Karl, first question to you. When you see growers just getting started with their perennial program, and specifically with unrooted cuttings, what are some common mistakes that you've seen in your experience?
Well, I think we see a lot of growers who maybe have some experience with annuals, so they're used to rooting things like verbena and petunia and things like that. So they think that if I bring in perennials, that they're going to behave just like that. And perennials is such a broad category that I really like to caution people to be careful in their thinking, and certain things like the range of rooting hormones that are necessary. With annuals it can be a pretty basic range, but with perennials that range can go anywhere from a couple hundred parts per million up to over 2,000 parts per million. So I think that's important for people to take a look at. Also, the rooting times vary dramatically. So some things are rooting in 4, 5, 6 days. Other things are taking 2 weeks or longer to root. So I think those are probably the big points.
Okay, excellent. And Chris, I know you've had a lot of experience sticking under to cutting perennials over the course of your career. And specifically, can you talk to us about media and how important media is for your under to cutting program?
Well, as Karl alluded to, the perennials are quite a bit different than annuals, and one thing I would prefer with perennials over the annuals is much looser media, a little better porosity. I don't like to see that media saturated. When the media is saturated, the cuttings really don't have any reason to send out roots. They've got all the moisture they need right there. And one indication of this is sometimes a large callus. If that cutting is starting to build up a really big piece of callus underneath the soil, that's an indication that you could be too wet. And so a better porosity media, I think, is important for perennials over annuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I think a question maybe for both of you. Either you guys can tackle this question. Fertilizer in your propagation program. So, why and when is it important for growers to start their fertilizer regime after they've stuck through into the cuttings?
Well, I think as Chris had mentioned, sometimes perennials can take a long time to root. And in the meantime, particularly mobile elements like nitrogen gets leached out of the foliage really quickly from mist and things like that. So I like to see growers, regardless of whether they see roots in the, pushing out, to start applying just a balanced fertilizer like a 15-5-15 even at day 7. And I just do it on the calendar because the plant can take that up through the callus or through the base of the cutting. It's also taking it up as a foliar feed, so you kind of help balance that out. Crops like Salvia nemorosa, you'll have a totally different experience by going in at that day 7 feed than if you waited until day 14 or 15 until you see roots.
Excellent.
And that's a really important point as far as leaching your nitrogen out, and that's why you really want to control your mist. You don't want to over mist your cuttings. You don't want to saturate that media with your mist because you're going to also wash your nutrients out. And so by applying a little bit of nitrogen, all we're doing is targeting the foliage. We just want to get the foliage wet with our mist. We don't want to necessarily get all that into our media so we don't leach our nutrients out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that irrigation is not so much a matter of trying to saturate the media at that point. Like you said, it's more of a sprench fertilizer than it is a super heavy-duty wetting.
Yeah, just keeping the cuttings turgid. Just enough to keep them turgid, but not dripping wet.
Right.
And that's where you can lead to other disease issues as well when you stay too wet like that.
Well, you guys have given us a lot of really great information on some of the misconceptions in having success with your undercutting program. Where can a grower go to find out some of the specific information by crop and by variety?
The Darwin Perennials catalog or our website has a lot of technical data on there. You can have specifics as far as rooting hormones go. Generally, I see more growers going to the KIBA salts, sticking all the cuttings at once, and then applying a heavy spray of like 250 or 300 parts per million of the KIBA. But there's other specifics that are listed in our technical guides that need higher amounts, such as our Mary Drew Mary series or Arctic Fox Rose Digitalis. Those still require a basal dip of usually the powder, 2,500 parts per million. So we have plenty of technical guides on our website to direct customers to have the best success for those.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Chris and Karl. Until next time, everyone, this has been At the Table with Chris and Karl.